going? How's your day been? Well, look, I know you're, that's enough. Just manners, honey. Go have some manners. Quit beating the drum with your tail. You're gonna miss the goose. We're gonna miss you. You're entering a very exciting time, you know. You're gonna head out and go off and be on your own, college. And, now I remember, well, I know we talked about this a bit, when I grew up in Ohio, and I definitely wanted to, get out of Ohio as quickly as I could. Back in the day, I loved growing up there as a kid, as a young man, but then by the time I was, 15, 16, I kind of started to itch. I wanted to get out and see other things, So I totally get it, It's important that you get to go out and experience the world and, plant your own flag and make your own mark on everything. But, I like these rainy nights too. I like the sound of the rain, dripping through the gutters. And there's something really cozy about having, being like warm and snuggly in here, and it being cold and macky outside, it's just like, it's just, I do like the juxtaposition. It makes me, appreciate, having a warm, cozy house, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I assume, you're both excited and, probably, probably a little nervous about heading off on your own, am I right? Yeah, right. And, my big advice, and this is very similar advice that I got from my family when I was about your age, was, whatever you do when you get out into the real world, do not let yourself get into credit card debt. And that was something that, my parents struggled with for a fair bit, and it's one of those weird things where it kind of sneaks up on you. You're kind of chugging along, and you think, oh well, what's the big deal? I'll put this on my credit card, and maybe 1 month, you don't pay the whole thing off. And so, you got a few $100 extra in debt on that credit card. Maybe the next month, you're like, well, you paid off most of it. And then you had a couple $100 more in debt. And then, before you know it, it's really easy to get like $1,000 in debt. And then all of a sudden, the API, the annual percentage rate on that credit card, which are usually crazy, like, between like 18 and 26%, like ridiculous. All of a sudden, you get like $1,000 in credit card debt, and then all of a sudden you're paying like $200 a month just in interest, right? You're just paying the interest on your loan, and so you get farther behind, then all of a sudden, that's an extra $200 a month that's not going toward paying it off, but it's just going to the ether of the credit card company, right? And so my big advice to you, if you can, really try to avoid credit card debt. That one is an absolute killer. And it's one of those things that I'm not going to say that it's easy to avoid credit card debt. It's not necessarily easy, but it is so much easier to avoid credit card debt than getting out of credit card debt. Does that make sense? Like, it takes to not go into debt. It takes discipline and it takes sacrifice. It takes discipline and sacrifice. And here's another really important thing that I learned from my folks, which is, when you're considering your finances, don't consider your finances in like month-long increments. Okay? Really consider your finances in a minimum 1 year, like a 12-month increment, or even better, like a 3-year, and then even a little later, like even like 5-year. But at bare minimum, you really want to think of your finances in 1-year cycles. Let me give you an example. So let's say you are looking to get a new car, right? And let's say you're making I don't know, $2,000 a month or something at your job, right? And you want to get a $400 a month, car payment, like a pretty car, a nice car, And you got to think, well, how much is that going to cost me over 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years? And I'll tell you, this actually happened to me. So I think I was 26 or 26 years old, and I bought my first car that I had bought purely on my own. Like it's not true, but it was the first nice car. It was the first car that I really liked that I purchased with my money. It was a 2003.5 and a half Volkswagen GTI. And that little half-year marker was important because if you bought an early 2003 model, the 1.8 liter turbo engine only had 150 horsepower. But at the 2.5 year, not redesign, but what had happened was they were building their cars in Mexico. The German car company Volkswagen had built a big plant in Mexico, and they're having quality control issues. And so the German brass goes down to Mexico, and they fired a bunch of the people. And all of a sudden, the cars got better, basically, and they went from 150 to 180 horsepower, and it was the same engine. So I was like, ooh, well, I want that. So I get the car of like my dreams, if you will. And it was, if I'm being honest, it was more than I could really afford. But I really wanted it, right? So I get the car, and I financed it. It's like a certified used vehicle, and I financed it. And 4 years later, I paid it off. I owned that car outright. Okay. And eventually I start getting the itch. I'm like, hey, it'd be fun. It'd be really cool. Is like a new car. And I really liked the new Volkswagen GTI that had come out. I thought they were really slick looking. And I was like, man, I'm gonna go out and I can afford one, right? I've been a good boy. I've been, I paid off my car loan, and I was living within my means, and I'd tucked a little bit of money away in savings. So I go to the Volkswagen dealership, and I find the car that I want, and I took it for a test drive, and I'm working with the lady, my salesperson, and we're looking at the numbers, and I think I want to say the payment was going to be somewhere like $350 a month or something, okay? Something like that. Maybe it was up to $400. I don't think it was $400. I think it was going to be like $350 a month. And I thought to myself, you know what? I can afford that. I can afford $350 a month. That's not wise thinking. Never purchase things Never purchase things based on your monthly payment. Always purchase things on what is, if you're going to buy a car, okay, never worry about your monthly payment unless you're leasing. That's a little different. But if you're buying your car, only worry about what are you actually, the price you're paying for the car versus its invoice. Like, what is it worth? And then worry about the rest later. But you only negotiate from the price that you agree on with the dealership. And that's all you're negotiating with. All the other numbers, because what they can do is they'll show you a car payment, and they'll show you like 3 different kinds. They'll show you a 36, 48, a 60-month, 5 years, or a 72-month. Okay, and it's like, well, you look at that 72-month payment, and it's like, oh my gosh, well that's affordable. I can afford this car if I finance it for 72 months. But what you're not paying attention to is they dangle this low monthly payment in front of you. What you're not realizing is that over here, the actual price of the vehicle hasn't changed. So you're actually not saving any money on the actual price of the car. And then you're negotiating based on payment. And that is a terrible idea. Okay? Your only concern is, how much are you paying for that vehicle? Okay? Everything else will work itself out. So, so I negotiate what I thought was a fair price for this, this new Volkswagen, this new GTI, and I was ready to buy. I was ready to buy. I was an adult in my late 20s. It's like, I'm an adult. I'm gonna buy this car, but before I buy this car, let me give my dad a ring. So I called my dad from the dealership. I'm standing out there and talking to him on the phone. I said, hey, Padre, hey, Dad, I'm looking at buying a Volkswagen. He goes, oh, great, Jeremiah. What are you looking at? And I, told him, I told him all about the car because I was really excited about it. I'm like, well, and then my monthly payment will be like, $350 a month or something like that. And my dad goes, okay, let's do some, back of the napkin math here. And let's really look at, what is the price of fun? What is the price of fun? And he goes, okay, well, first of all, how's your current car doing? And I was like, well, my current car is fine. This is still my old 2003, my dream car. And I said, well, it's fine. It's due for like a service, so that's gonna be like $500 or $800, and that kind of sucks. I'm just kind of like, do I do the service, or do I just, get a new one? And my dad's like, okay, fair enough. Let's look at the cost of fun. Says, so you own your current vehicle, right? You own it outright. I was like, yeah, I paid it off 6 months, a year ago. It's like, okay, great. And what are you paying in insurance on it? And I forgot it, about like $100 a month, $120 a month for insurance. I said, okay, your new car's gonna be more, right? I was like, yeah, it'll be a little more. Probably my insurance will probably go up like, like $50 a month or something like that for my insurance. It's like, okay, $50 a month, right? Okay. And what's your new car payment gonna be? I was like, oh, probably like, like $350. He's like, okay, well, let's do some quick math. So $350 a month plus another $50 in insurance, we'll call it $400 a month, right? And every 10 months, of course, that means that's $4,000. And every year, it's $4,800, right? It's almost $5,000 a year in the new car. And over 3 years, that's $15,000, give or take. And he was like, so, in 3 years, would you rather have $15,000 extra in your savings account, or the fun of driving this vehicle, versus Is it for 3 years? Is it $15,000 more fun than your current vehicle? And I had to go, man, like, but I really wanted it, you know. You're out there, you're excited. It's like, what do they call it? Shopping therapy. What's their name? There's a name for it. Retail. They call it retail therapy. You know, you go out and you buy yourself a new shirt or, you know, a new pair of shoes, something that you like. You know, retail therapy. And here's a car. You know, it's like the ultimate retail therapy. And I'm going like, man, I was really excited, you know. But I'm talking to my dad, and it's just like, man, Dad, you're right. Like, in 3 years, I would much rather have the extra $15K in the bank than not, you know. So I said goodbye to my sales lady and said, hey, thank you so much. I'm gonna think about it. And I ended up driving that Volkswagen for at least another 2 years. So I didn't maybe get a whole $15K out of it, but I probably saved at least $10,000 over the next 2 years. Before, you know, I did eventually upgrade to a different vehicle, but it's just when you're thinking about your finances and, like, you know, do you have the money to spend on X, Y, or Z? Don't look at it per month, okay? Amortize it out for a year and go, ooh, because then it really adds up, right? Like let's say you want to get like a really fancy car, you know, like a BMW or like something like, you know, like something fancy schmancy. And let's say, you know, you're going, well, you know, I can afford like a $700 a month car payment, okay? Just hypothetically, right? Let's say you could afford a $700 a month car payment. You'd have that really cool car. Well, how much is that per year? Right. 10 months, $7,000. Plus another 2 months is $1,400. So that's $8,400 per year. $8,400 per year. And you gotta ask yourself, is there anything else you would rather spend $8,000 on? Almost $9,000 a year if you buy this new shiny thing. And I'm not saying you can't ever, like, you know, like, I'm not saying never treat yourself. It's important to treat yourself at times. But I just want you to think in terms of, okay, where do you want to be in 1 year? Where do you want to be in 2 years? In 5 years? You know, like when buying a home, for example, like when your mother and I, you know, went to buy this home. The whole Volkswagen thing happened before I met your mother. Okay. And when I met your mom, I had a decent amount of savings, very much because I didn't buy the shiny new toy. Okay. And so, you know, you fast forward a little bit, I meet your mom, and we eventually move in together, and then a few years later, we're trying to buy our first home, and it's a lot, you know. When you buy a house, you got to put on a big down payment, and I have to say, you know, hindsight, which is always 20/20. You understand that, where it's like you can always look back and go, oh well, yeah, this was the right choice, or that's not the right choice, right? With the wisdom of time, hindsight's 20/20. And so in hindsight, like, there is a real possibility that your mother and I would not have been able to buy our home had I, years before, made the choice of like, yeah, but I can afford a $350 a month car payment. I can afford a $400 a month car payment. That's not that bad. But had I made that choice, it would have had like this long, like, ripple effect throughout the rest of my late 20s and early 30s. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? And so, as you go out and you're, establishing yourself, and you get your first apartment, you get your new car, just think about things that way and ask yourself, okay, like, do I want to get the fancier apartment with a little shinier, everything's like, stainless steel appliances and everything's, fancy, but the rent is another, let's say it's $2,500 a month, for like the nicer apartment, and it's, but it's $1,500 a month for like the 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment that you share with a roommate. That's $1,500 a month, right? But it's $2,500 a month for the 2-bedroom, 2-bath, fancier place. It has a swimming pool. Maybe it has a gym, okay? And let's say, you're just splitting that extra $1,000, 50-50, so it's only another $500 a month, right? So instead of it being $750 a month per person, you're now spending, another $500 a month, so $1,250 per month. And you say to yourself, well, I can afford that. That's within my budget, I can afford that. But then you gotta look, well, how much more would you have spent over the course of a year at $500 more per month in rent? How much more would you spend? Quick math. 5 times 10 months, that's 5,000 plus 2 more months. So that's $6,000 per year that you could save by not getting the fancy 2-bedroom, 2-bath with the gym and things like that, and the pool, versus saving that money. I'm not saying that you should or shouldn't do one or the other, right? That's really up to you. But I want you to consider that when you're laying out these financial costs, that at minimum you think about what that payment will be over the course of 1 year. And then you can quickly do the math and go over how much would it be over 3 years. Like, what if you stayed in that place for 3 years? Well, you'd be, $15,000 less money in your pocket after 3 years. It adds up. My point, what I'm saying is, it really adds up. And so I want you to start thinking about, how to set yourself up, your future self, for success, while also at the same time, I'm not saying you need to live, like in squalor. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying. Think longer term. Think in minimum of 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year increments. And if you can avoid, getting into credit card debt, avoid it like the plague. And here's another thing about cars that I've come to realize, your mother and I, we love our minivans, right? I know you don't think they're cool. Well, I think they're the best. They're to me, it is like the ultimate vehicle. And when I was a younger man, I was like, I want the cool sporty car, I wanted the Volkswagen GTI with the 5-speed, I wanted that experience. But you have to go like, well, how much do you want that? How much do you really care? And what I realized, I took my Volkswagen up to Malibu a couple of times, and I drove it up in the canyons, and did like some kind of zipping around, and felt really cool. But the vast majority of my driving, was just city commuting, just getting from one place place in LA to the next, stop and go traffic, sitting waiting on the 405 with everybody else. You look to your left and your right, and maybe you see there's a Ferrari next to you in the 405. And guess what? That Ferrari is going the exact same speed you are. And there's nothing they can do about it. Nothing. Do you know what I'm saying? So, just be aware of little things like that. What's the cost of fun? So, anyway, no matter what, I'm proud of you, kiddo. And your mother and I are super proud of you. And we love you. And we hope that, if you ever have any questions, you can always call and talk to us. We'll always listen and try to give you advice that makes sense. And of course, we're also very well aware that you are going to be an adult soon. You are going to be an adult, and you're going to make your own decisions. Some decisions you will be grateful for. Other decisions you'll go, oops, that may have been a boo-boo. But you just have to go out there and do it. Get out on your own and experience that. So, we're excited for you. I have confidence. I have a great deal of confidence that you are going to be okay. You're smart. You're funny. You're good looking. I mean, you're gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay as long as you don't mind working, and as long as you don't do anything too horribly self-destructive. You're gonna be okay. Alright? Okay, I'm gonna really miss these talks. But, I love you.